I hope, am I audible?
Hi, good evening. Yes, you are audible.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So, PMI Mumbai chapter PITSTOP team, welcome you all in today's session on PMBOK 7th edition Demystified. And the session is being taken by, will be taken by Ms. Preeta Deepak. And before I invite her to share the practical tips, there are two announcements I have to make. One is the feedback link, which would be shared post the session, and no, and after followed by that we have PDU code also, and you can avail one PDU in technical category. So, little more about Preeta. So, Preeta is an architect and an experienced project manager with over 1.5 decade industry experience working with top multinationals. She has managed large scale complex mixed use construction interior fit out projects accounting to about 6 million square feet. Preeta started her career as a management trainee with Cushman and Wakefield, which is a global real estate firm. She also worked with AECOM, which is one of the world's largest infrastructure consulting firm. In her capacity as a design manager, she managed the complex design interfaces on the project. And later, she joined M. Moser Associates, which is in the top 50 global interior design giants. Post that she has over 8 years where she led many projects with M. Moser from concept till completion in the capacity of a senior team leader and an expert project management consultant. She has worked across industry types, have collaborated with variety of clients, stakeholder, consultants, and contractor across multiple geographies, and bring along the knowledge, wisdom, skills, and industry best practices in the sphere of project management. She is passionate about sharing knowledge and conducts project management training. And she has been a faculty with the Project Management Institute, Mumbai chapter, for about 2.5 years and facilitates PMP exam prep training. So please all join me in welcoming Preeta Deepak. And Preeta, please, the dais is all yours. I can't hear you, Preeta.
Sorry, I think I missed to unmute myself. Thank you. I was just saying thank you, Rupali, so much for that introduction. And a very good evening to all of you here. And thank you so much for taking out time on a working day after a long day. I'm sure most of you would have had a long day to take out time and join here for this very interesting topic of PMBOK 7, which was launched right last year, maybe a little over a year now. And thank you so much for to PMI Mumbai chapter for giving me this opportunity to be with you all today evening. So I think let me just kind of share my screen and do let me know if you can see, so we can quickly jump to the. Yeah, is my screen visible?
Still not.
Not it? Okay. Has it come in now? I think now it shows up to
No,
me.
not yet. Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes,
can
yes.
see.
It's
Yeah,
coming.
Now we can.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me put on the presentation mode so we can just straight away jump to the topic. So how I think we have an hour's time, but yeah, I think I was also mentioned it could just spill over for 10-15 minutes more. That's fine. That should be okay. But nevertheless, I will try to probably keep it to say about 30-40 minutes and then open the dais for questions. So I would like to kind of keep it also interactive. So many of you might want to add some thoughts, share some thoughts what you might have had, and maybe some questions which might kind of cross through your mind, right? So the last 15-20 minutes we could probably reserve for that. So that's how, yeah, so that's how we would probably go. So the topic for today's PMBOK Guide 7th edition, Demystified. And the agenda would pan out something like this. Why the PMBOK gets updated, right from the first edition to till about current edition. It has been like 7 editions, so why it gets updated, and then what's the PMBOK's evolutionary roadmap. Probably I wouldn't cover everything, but then the key pointers between the last version, the 6th and the 7th version at least. And then what has been some of the key considerations for the PMBOK 7th edition and how it is different from the PMBOK 6th, what are the key differences. And some glimpse of the key concepts under 7th edition, which is primarily the 12 principles, the 8 performance domain, which are very different from how the past PMBOK editions have been laid down. It is now based on the 12 principles and 8 performance domains, which is something I would glimpse upon. And then tailoring models, methods, and artifacts, which has also been added as separate sections. It's not like anything new. These were covered under PMBOK 6th edition for sure, but then they have been moved into a separate volume or separate chapter, I would say. Right. So this is how the agenda for today would cover. So why the PMBOK gets updated? What's the need for it? Right. So I think just to kind of share this, the first PMBOK edition, some of you might know, but just for the interest of the entire audience, the first PMBOK version is dated to something around 1987, right? So it has had a really long journey, and today we are in 2022, and we have the 7th edition. So why it gets updated, right? Just to answer that question, any thoughts I can see on the chat window? Anybody wants to kind of share some knowledge or thoughts as to why the PMBOK gets updated? Feel free to say. There's no right or wrong answer. I think it's just the evolutionary roadmap. So probably I welcome any
Can you
answers.
just repeat your question?
Okay, my question was why the PMBOK gets updated, right? Since 1987, between 2022, we've had 7 versions. Okay, I can say like incorporate the latest, yeah, to be in, because waterfall method of managing project was not getting intended results, and okay, stay in relevance with current requirements. Yes, yeah, I think I can see many answers which are very close and relevant. It reflects
Also
the
to
best
align with future
practices.
technologies.
Correct, right? Yeah, I think a lot of answers are pouring down, and yes, definitely yes. I think all of you have got the right answer, right? So that's great to hear this from the forum. So because project management, the entire landscape within which the project management was managed and now being managed, right? There has been a lot of evolution. Initially, most industries had a very prescriptive way of managing projects. This is the process, you do this, that's the output, that's how kind of things were happening. And waterfall was the most primary way of managing projects, which was relevant to a lot of industries. But now I think with many industries adopting project management, I think now even when we conduct trainings, we have participants across industries, right? The way they do projects are very different. The landscape in which their projects are very implemented is very different. While waterfall still is very suitable for some of the industries like construction, infra, but then primarily many other industries like software, IT, they're all migrating into primarily in agile. And even under some industries, they do adopt hybrid model, right? There are various approaches. And then the team structure, the organization models, right? Earlier, it could have been very co-located, simple team structures, but now the project management landscape includes stakeholders across diverse regions, right? So the evolution roadmap for the entire project management industry itself has been phenomenal. So in line with that, definitely like you all got the answers, the PMBOK also has to kind of keep up with the pace, right? So that has kind of triggered the need. So just to summarize, which I think we already got the answer from the forum, the global perspectives on changes in PM and approaches, and the advancement in technology, thinking skills and capabilities of people in the industry, and then the varied approaches, perspectives, which is used for realizing value from the project, right? This is another thing which we will see as we go down the slides. Earlier, when the project management was happening, the key focus was on deliverable, right? But then with the recent evolution, I think the focus has kind of shifted to adding value or getting outcomes, right? What we deliver has to really add value for the business. It could be both for the performing organization and also to the customer organization for which the performing organization is doing a project, right? So both ways. So the recent shift has also been to deliver value or outcomes rather than just deliverable, right? The deliverable, I mean, in the past, probably most project managers were focused on time, cost, quality, right? But then now the focus is what we deliver within the time, cost, quality, how much value it adds to the customers or the end users, right? So that has been, so these have been some of the recent industry trends. And then the PMBOK has tried its best to keep up with the space, right? So it gets updated. So when this PMBOK 7 was updated, what did the experts emphasize? Some of the key points or takeaways. Maintain and enhance PMBOK's credibility and relevance to the current trends. Then the improve PMBOK's readability. It should be easily understandable and readable. And sense users content needs and provide better supplemental content, which is also something we will learn 2 slides down the line, right? The users content needs have changed. So has the PMBOK changed with supplemental information also. And recognize the value of previous content's relevance to some stakeholders. So this is one another point which I would like to kind of really emphasize. Although PMBOK 7 has come in, it is to be noted that it does not negate the value of the previous versions, correct? So this is also something which you would learn 2 slides down the line as to how they have very intelligently covered. That is how PMBOK 7 very intelligently covers the knowledge of the previous versions, right? So that it doesn't negate the value of the past versions. Nothing has become obsolete. So that's also something we would like to emphasize on. So this is just a quick glimpse of evolutionary roadmap. So I'm really not going into each and everything, but nevertheless, I would just compare. I have in fact rather kept from 1996, but the evolutionary roadmap starts something from about 1987 when the first version was kind of rolled out. But just between the last version, which is 6th edition, and the current one, which is the latest, 2021. So let's see the quick glimpse of how it has been. So 2017 edition, I think, is one of the prominent edition. Why? Because it's the first time when when the PMBOK had a distinct separation between the ANSI standard and the guide. And most importantly, that was the first time when the agile content started featuring actually into the PMBOK as a text, not just an example reference, but in the form of text or content. Some of you who might be familiar with the PMBOK 6 might have seen in each of the knowledge area. At the beginning, there is a clear call out for key concepts, trends, and emerging practices, as well as tailoring considerations for agile adaptive environment. Right, this is something I'm sure most of you might have noticed who have been familiar with PMBOK 6. So this is a key milestone for the PMBOK evolution. And but from this to this, that is 2017 6th edition to 2021 7th edition, there has been quite a big shift. Why? Because 2021 7th edition has now become principle based. The primary reason being the project management is now applicable to a variety of industries, a variety of delivery approaches. So the PMBOK 7th edition, the focus is to lay down some concepts or overarching principles which lays down the expected behavior of a project manager. Okay, so those are the 12 principles which would quickly glimpse upon what those are. And also 8 performance domains, which are necessarily the activities which a project manager has to perform within the framework of the 12 principles, right? So that is how it has very nicely put those down. And PMBOK 7 is a very, very nice read, unlike the previous versions, which I think is good, but then it's very process-based. But then the PMBOK 7, because it is based on the 12 principles and 8 performance domains, it also is like a very nice read. The flow is good, and then it's very relatable. That's something which, as a faculty, I have personally seen this. It was never boring to go to the 7th edition. And then the focus is on value, delivery, and outcomes, right? Like we mentioned, more than just a deliverable. So these are some of the key differentiators with respect to the past edition. And this is a slide which actually shows how the content has been organized between the 6th and 7th edition. So the 6th edition, if we recall, had this guide to the project management body of knowledge, as well as a standard for project management. The standard for project management more or less had those 5 process groups, initiating through closing group, And then knowledge area had got primarily the 10 knowledge areas, right, which had got business processes under them, which were organized across these process groups, right? For instance, if we take scope as a knowledge area, it had 6 processes, right, under which has been organized from planning till closing. So that was how it was more or less organized. And then each process had a input, tools, techniques, and output, which was very prescriptive, right? How to kind of create a W base, for instance, had specific inputs and some tools and techniques to create. And then if we do this, what would be a clear output? So yes, definitely it was a very good ready reference or a reckoner to kind of look into a very prescriptive or process-based way of managing project. So that was the PMBOK 6. But now if we see how the PMBOK 7 has been organized, you can actually see the PMBOK 7 has got, it's a single PDF, of course, but then has got 2 distinct sections. One is the standard for project management and the guide to the project management body of knowledge. If you see, the order is slightly swapped. But in the guide, the standard for project management has got those 12 principles, unlike the processes, right? There is an introduction, the systems for value delivery, because we just learned in the last slide that the 7th edition places a great focus on value delivery rather than just deliverable. And then the 12 principles are elaborated under the standard for project management, which typically provides a guiding behavior for a project manager. And this can be applied. The beauty of it is these 12 principles can be applied to any delivery approach. It could be a waterfall project. Somebody could be doing an agile project. It could be on a for any type of project, it is applicable. Or delivery approach is applicable. That's how I would like to put it. And then closely followed by the guide to project management body of knowledge, which has got the 8 performance domain, which are typically the activities or the interdependent management capabilities which the project manager must do within the guidance of these 12 principles to achieve the project outcomes, right? So that is how it has been laid down. And then what we learned as tailoring at the beginning of each knowledge area in the PMBOK 6, that has been moved to a separate tailoring section, right? So the content is quite similar, but then it has been separated in a separate section. And then the last section, models, methods, artifacts, that is a new section in PMBOK 7. But the content is something like as we have most of you familiar with the PMBOK 6 might have already kind of known tools, techniques, right? So basically the models, some of the methods used for project management, and artifacts, which are basically the outputs or the project documents, right? They have created, we will see a table as we go down the PowerPoint presentation. They have created tables, an enlistment of the most predominant models, methods, and artifacts across the performance domains, right? Just that it is not very prescriptive, but allows the project manager to kind of pick and choose what is most appropriate for the situation. So that has been nicely laid down as the last section, closely followed by the appendices, glossary, and index, which is common, of course, like any other PMBOK. And then there is a newly launched interactive digital platform, which is called as the PMI Standards Plus. So if we kind of go to this PMI.org and go to PMI Standards Plus, one can actually find all the knowledge, and PMBOK 6 also can be comprised into this, can be seen inside this. So that is how it is relatable. It has kind of actually, like I mentioned in one of the past slides, it doesn't kind of, PMBOK 7 launch does not negate the value of the previous content, but just that it has been moved to a standard plus. So definitely the relevance still exists. So this is how the PMBOK 6 and 7 in the way it is organized is different. Okay. So let me just quickly take through the 12 principles. The 12 principles are very nicely laid out in the PMBOK 7, but because of the want of time, so I would quickly still give a glimpse of each of these, what each would actually comprise of, but then definitely it's a nice read. I would kind of encourage all of you to kind of download the PMBOK 7 and read through the 12 principles, which would be definitely whichever environment a project manager is operating in, whether it is a waterfall project or what kind of agile project or your project has got a hybrid approach. For anybody, this could be very, very beneficial. So these are the 12 overarching principles they have laid down. So stewardship is the first one, which is actually very interesting. So it says like a good project manager should also be a very good steward. So which means from the starting of the project till the last end of the life cycle of the project, he should be responsible or accountable for the entire project delivery, right? So that is basically in terms of the responsibility or how much diligence or care the project manager operates in an environment. So that is what is basically stewardship, which is basically be a diligent, respectful, and a caring steward. So that is basically some of the keywords for stewardship. And then team is the next principle. So obviously every project manager should strive for creating a collaborative project team environment. So there is immense emphasis placed on the PMBOK 7th edition in terms of what is a team and how a collaborative project environment has to be facilitated by a PM, right? So those things have been very nicely elaborated under this principle. And then stakeholders, I think we all know stakeholders is not a new topic. This has been covered even in the past editions of the PMBOK. This is nothing new to all of us. And then we also know that engaging stakeholders effectively is a very, very important ingredient for a successful project. So this is, of course, a very, very important principle for successfully delivering a project. And then focus on value. This one is slightly new one, right? Because I think, like we mentioned, we could do a project within all the constraints, like the triple constraints, which all of us are familiar, right? We could hand over something which probably may, if it doesn't kind of meet the business intent or the value, then probably it negates the purpose, right? The customer or the end user may eventually not be happy, correct? So that is basically the focus on value. So I think I could probably pause here and give a very nice example which we came across. So I think that was very relatable. When I personally read this, this was one of my personal favorite, without any bias, focus on value, which probably we never realized, at least I never realized before this incident happened. So I think we started with the project. It was an interior office fit out project. This was pre-pandemic. We did the design, and then of course during the pandemic, when it suddenly came in March 2020, so of course the projects came on a stall. We could not move further. And then after 6 months, the client came back, and then they said, let's just kind of now start implementing the project. The design was complete, but they still wanted to kind of look back and see how the design has been signed off before we kind of actually execute on ground. So when we look back at the I think Saili Pradhan says disturbance in my voice. Is that for everybody, or am I audible? Is there a
Yes, you are perfectly audible. Thank you.
audible, right? Okay, sure, no problem. So I was just checking. Okay, so when we kind of look back at the design, the client came back and said what we had designed as a writing board, physical writing board. The customer came back and told us, why don't we knock off all of this individual writing boards, because I am really not sure when all my employees are now going to come full time and start working. So instead, why don't we use a smart board? Maybe one or two people may attend the meeting in office. The others, even if they are going to kind of join the meetings remotely, a smart board could be very beneficial. They could quickly kind of extract the meeting outcomes and kind of get going, right? So that was kind of, like for instance, if we had not done that one meeting again with the client to see what we designed earlier versus what could suit a customer, given the current circumstances, we would have missed out, right? We would have kind of put in all those writing boards in each of the meeting rooms. And when actually the client would start using the office, they would have found that it is kind of a very, it is a very obsolete design solution, isn't it? So this is just one simple example. So likewise, focus on value is kind of become very important for how business operates these days. Perfectly, a project manager could kind of deliver anything within time, cost, and uh, with very good quality. But then if it doesn't serve any purpose to a customer, it really doesn't kind of call a project a success, right? That is one of the key emphasis as a latest trend, which is covered in PMBOK 7th edition. And then we have the next thing, which is systems thinking. This is also very important, right? Probably quite new as a concept. I'm sure a lot of us are working on large projects, right? Projects don't operate in isolation. Projects typically belong to a larger environment, both within the performing organization as well as the customer organization, right? It interacts with several other elements, correct, which could impact it. So obviously, the project manager should not have a myopic view of how he would probably deliver a project. Rather, he should have a larger picture of what are the external interactions which could kind of influence his project either positively or negatively, right? And if it is going to impact negatively, the project manager should be able to kind of perceive this in advance so that he's able to kind of manage situations very well and be well prepared for that, right? So that's systems thinking basically, which is recognize, evaluate, and respond to system interactions. And leadership, this is nothing new, but then it is becoming very important or gaining momentum. Why? Because in the recent past, with agile becoming from the PMBOK 6th edition, at least with a lot of emphasis on agile, and now with the latest exam content outline, agile concepts have also kind of become very, very prominent. Right, so leadership is very important because we're looking at high performing teams, different kinds of leadership which is suitable for agile, like the servant leadership, etc. And then with geographically distributed teams, concepts of virtual team, etc. Right, like especially post pandemic, the teams have become very virtual. Now I think, of course, now I think we are all back to office mostly, but then in intermediate, I think for the 2 years it was all mostly virtual teams. So from that context, leadership becomes very important because it is very important to kind of connect the team or match and marry the team members together to kind of get the deliverables or project outcomes, rather. That's how I would put it forth. So it is very important for a PM to demonstrate leadership behavior. So whatever could be the challenge or however the team is placed, they should be in position to motivate the teams very well to get the project outcomes. So this is quite an important expected behavior of a PM. And tailoring, this is not new, covered in PMBOK 6th itself, depending upon the project approach or the delivery approach, how or based on the context, the outcomes can be tailored, or the processes, rather activities to be conducted are tailored. Quality, build quality into process and deliverables. Again, this is important, a focus on quality that produces deliverables that meet project objectives, which is aligned to the needs and uses of the end users, right, or stakeholders. So this is also nothing new, which I think all of us are very familiar. Navigate complexity. Project environment is complex, right? I'm sure all of you might have heard of the term UCA, right? It's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Most projects have these elements to them. So a good project manager should always be prepared, right? Avoiding complexity may or may not help because most large projects have complexities. So a good project manager typically should aspire to kind of assess the complexity on the project and to kind of put in place the required process to monitor the complexity in an ongoing manner so that he will be able to navigate the complexity appropriately. So this is one of the key principles. Optimize risk response is again not new. Risk is something I think which we have all learned ever since PMBOK existed, right? So basically a good PM also watches out for risk, continually evaluate the high priority risk, and then how we can mitigate that. Adaptability and resiliency, which is I wouldn't it is important, I wouldn't say new, but yes, this is one of the very important principle which has been laid down. Adaptability, because projects always happen in changing environment. So adaptability is an important principle which a project manager should aspire to have. And then resiliency, anything could go wrong, irrespective of the project manager having a very good awareness of the complex environment, risk, etc. If anything goes wrong, how quickly the project manager and his team can come back to full strength and start or get going, right? That is basically resiliency. So some of these have been added. So embrace adaptability and resiliency as one of the principle. And I think this is the last one, change. So this is, I think all of you can pause and note here. Till about the last edition, avoiding change or kind of going through a complex change management procedure was laid a lot of emphasis on. Yeah, still I wouldn't say we should negate that. That is important, especially when we are doing a complex waterfall model project. Definitely it is important to go through a complex change process, and then it is better to kind of sign off the scope, sign off budget, schedule, and try to stick on to that rather than having changes which may probably have project implications. But nevertheless, with changing project management landscape and with agile taking a lot of prominence in the project management industry, one important principle is how a project manager can welcome change or be a change enabler. Why? Because change is always not bad. Change many times adds a lot of value to the customer, right? Customer also makes change only because he thinks something and change could probably add a better business value to him, right? So sometimes it's good for a project manager to enable those change to achieve the envisioned future state, right? So this is quite a it is a different thing, kind of. No, I think we always might have, at least most of us might have felt like change must be avoided or bad for the project. But then I think this is something very new and a new takeaway. We can also enable change, definitely, if it adds to the business value of a customer, right? So this is the last principle. So this completes the 12 principles, which has been nicely laid down in the PMBOK 7. And then the 8 performance domains. So these are typically the knowledge is not very new, but then I mean to say it is very similar to the knowledge areas, which is on the PMBOK 6. But then definitely the way it has been laid down, it is not very prescriptive, but then it is it also has some different some topics like development approach, life cycle and life cycle, etc., which were covered in glimpses in the previous versions, but yes, now it has been put in a separate performance domain. So let's quickly take a glimpse of all this 8. I'm just looking at the time. So just looking at it's 9, but I think we still have half hour. Should be good. So just looking at the 8 performance domains. So stakeholder, this section typically covers how one would work with stakeholders to maintain alignment and engage with them to foster the whatever is required to be done in the project. So this comprises all the knowledge in terms of identifying stakeholders and then engaging with them, or kind of finding out who are the most important stakeholders and then with whom to engage with, right? A lot of this knowledge we already had in the previous PMBOK editions. So it is this particular the knowledge in this particular performance domain is not new, but then it is kind of available to anybody who would kind of have the 7th edition with them. So that's basically the stakeholder performance domain. And then the team performance domain has got a lot of knowledge in terms of leadership, aspects of emotional intelligence, how to manage team, how to kind of manage high performance team, virtual teams, right? A lot of these things which kind of goes hand in hand with managing projects in evolving project management landscape as well as in agile environment. A lot of this knowledge is covered in the team performance domain. And then development approach and life cycle, so which is how to perform a project, or under what circumstances one would go for a waterfall, one would go for a agile, one would go for a hybrid. A lot of this knowledge is comprised in this development approach and life cycle domain. And then the planning performance domain, the knowledge is not new. I think most of us who are aware of the PMBOK 6 would already know the elements of all the planning process, typically things like the scope, WBS, estimating, and then scheduling, the concept of leads, lags, right? And then how the budget buildup happens from the how estimation roll up, control estimates, all those planning concepts are covered into this. This is not a new knowledge, but yes, it is concisely kept under this performance domain. And then project work performance domain more or less comprises the knowledge of the executing process groups of the PMBOK 6 in the previous versions, right? With some new knowledge in terms of value stream mapping, lean protection, etc., which are typical to the agile concept. A lot of these things have also been included into this particular performance domain. And then delivery performance domain has got knowledge on quality, cost of quality, nothing new, but the knowledge from the PMBOK 6 in terms of the requirement, scope definition, all of this come under this performance domain. And then measurements performance domain, again, the knowledge is not new, covered in the previous editions. But just to give a glimpse, it has knowledge in terms of establishing metrics, then the EBM techniques and a lot of data analysis techniques, which is typically used for monitoring and controlling processes. They are covered here, just called as measurement performance domain instead of a monitoring and controlling. Just the terminology has become slightly different, but the knowledge is available here. And then last is the team performance domain, which has got a lot of sorry, I think I went up. Yeah, measurement performance domain. And there's the last performance domain. Okay. Uncertainty performance domain, which has got some knowledge on the risk and then how risk can be mitigated, right? So this covers the 8 performance domain. And we quickly see there is we also learned there's a separate section on tailoring, right? Which is similar to PMBOK 6, but then it has been separated out, which typically has got 4 steps as to what is tailoring and why tailor and what to tailor typically. So this has got this is a separate section. And then there's the last section which I mentioned initially, which is on the models, methods, artifacts, right? Which typically goes like this. I think showing the table would probably be very relatable to all of you. So if we say the models, I think even in PMBOK 6 and some of the earlier versions, there have been models, right? For instance, we have all those motivational theories. They have just enlisted that, and then across the performance domain, they had mapped as to what could be used, right? And each of those models have been very clearly explained under this particular section of the PMBOK 7. And similarly, methods, which is typically tools and techniques, which I'm sure all of you familiar with the PMBOK 6th edition will be very much aware of. All the methods, which are typically tools and techniques, it was called as earlier. So they have been enlisted very nicely. And then across performance domain, they have been mapped so that the project manager, it is not prescriptive again, but the project manager can pick and choose as to what is most appropriate for the situation. But then the knowledge is available in a very in a proper separate section, which can be easily referred to. And similarly, artifacts, which is basically the project documents, an enlistment of that, and how it relates to each of the performance domain. So this is how typically the models, methods, artifact section is laid down. So, and then this closely follows with the glossary of terms. So this is how the PMBOK 7 is laid down. So I think that gives a glimpse of what is PMBOK 7 and how it is different from PMBOK, the earlier versions. So this completes our slides. So I would probably now, I would like to hear from you all. So if you have any questions or anybody wants to add any thoughts, I'm free to hear that. Any questions?
Yeah, this is Rahul. From an agile perspective, whatever is taught in this PMBOK, does it cover the full aspects of agile, or it is just an overview of agile framework?
Okay, that's a nice question. So it is just an agile framework, definitely. Some of the concepts or principles which could be applicable for the agile project and the performance domains also, process and activities could be applicable, are covered in the PMBOK 7. Having said that, like I mentioned initially, the PMI standards plus, which is being add-on to the PMBOK 7 and it's online available. One could log into the pmi.org and go to the PMI standards plus. So if you click that, the agile practice guide is a part of that. So that is how it is interlinked. The 7th edition is still linked to the ACP. It can be referred there. But yes, to answer your question, the PMBOK 7th edition has a glimpse of agile, good enough for a candidate, for a person to kind of have a glimpse of what agile means. But then yes, if one has to literally understand each element of the agile way of doing a project, ACP is a better reference, which is covered in the PMA Standards Plus.
And
Does it address, Rahul?
what was the reason behind including Agile in PMBOK? Because PMBOK is project management and Agile is development life cycle.
Yeah, so agile is an approach to managing projects. So many people, especially who belong to the IT industry, uh, do manage project the agile way, right? But still, for instance, if I have to say stakeholder or leadership or systems thinking, all of these principles are very much applicable to a person who's managing an agile project also, isn't it? So that way, it still kind of covers the agile. Right, because anybody, it's a reference. PMBOK is a reference for a project manager who could belong to any industry, right? So that is the reason it has been covered like that.
Okay.
Any questions, feel free. So I can feel free to ask anything, or you want to add any thoughts.
Hello, ma'am. My name is Pushpendra.
Your voice is slightly feeble.
My name is Pushpendra. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now much better. Yeah, Pushpendra. Yeah.
I just want to, while I was going through edition 7, I found that there is a very thin line description which is given the difference between leadership and management.
Hmm.
So, would you like to highlight on it if suppose we have to do the differentiation properly between the two? Because there are a lot of confusing things and they are actually combined in both 6 and 7.
Okay.
So, do you suggest some kind of if somebody has to read into these aspects or need some clarification on these aspects? Because the leadership is a big topic and what it is covered here doesn't do the justice.
It just gives a glimpse of how to be a good leader, a good leader for a project.
So my doubt is actually between leadership and management, there are lots of, shortcuts which have been taken here, which creates a lot of confusion like I had, but then I have to refer to some other books for getting it clarified.
Okay, so that's a very interesting question, Pushpendra. See, management is typically, if I have to relate your question well and respond to that, so management still becomes very prescriptive, isn't it? Being a good manager, I wouldn't say is easy, but then I would really say, I would be very sure to say being a good leader is even more difficult, isn't it? So that's how I would put it across. There's a very thin line of difference, right? Anybody who probably knows all the processes and has got a good amount of discipline in them uh, could turn out to be a good manager, more or less, in my opinion, right? So that probably a good manager, if he has to kind of go a level up, probably he should definitely, to be a good leader, the leadership also imbibes as to how some of the intrinsic qualities, right, which are more like an EI qualities or soft qualities, right, which would kind of help to motivate and get the work done from people around, which is also the team around, right? So leadership is a very larger terminology from that, in that context, correct? But if you see PMBOK 6 has got the leadership styles embedded into that, right? To say that even under PMBOK 7, there are these motivational models which are mentioned under that, which are quite interesting concepts. But yes, like you mentioned, PMBOKs have kind of given a glimpse of it. But anybody who wants to kind of have more knowledge, I think, like you mentioned, it's good to kind of have more read which are on the leadership or things like that.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the.
Sure. I think someone also raised the hand. I don't see it now.
Yeah, it's Vinay here. I raised the hand. Can I ask the question?
Yeah, Vinay. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have two questions regarding this. One is those who have done PMBOK 6 or the earlier versions, what exactly they should take from this PMBOK 7? That is one. And second, in the market right now, other practices are available like Scrum, Scrum Master certification, all these. So are these aligned with those methodology also in PMBOK 7?
Okay, so two things. So one is, what was your first question? You asked like somebody who has kind of read the PMBOK 6th edition, what is their key takeaway from the 7th edition, right? That's how I
Yes,
understood your first question.
yes, correct.
Okay, so PMBOK 7, see PMBOK 6, like I mentioned, still is not become obsolete. So somebody who has kind of learned the PMBOK 6 probably has got a lot of knowledge of the project management process, right? That is very elaborative. To say, but yes, PMBOK 7 definitely has got some of the new concepts in terms of especially things like how a project really operates in a complex environment in terms of the systems thinking, in terms of focus on value or outcomes rather than just a deliverable, right? Or how a project operates in complex environment. Typically, I would say one who has already gone through a PMBOK 6th edition should definitely still go through the project management principles, right? The 12 principles which we noted down, which is a very, very interesting read. That is for sure. But yes, having said that, the guide to PMBOK and the performance domain may have some knowledge which could be overlapping with these knowledge areas of the PMBOK, but that's okay. That could be read. Even otherwise, the 7th edition is not a very voluminous book. It has got fewer number of pages than the previous editions, is what I think my sense is. But yes, definitely for somebody who has done the 6th edition, the 12 principles is something, the first part, the stand for project management is something which is definitely very interesting to read. That's how I would address that. And your second question was how this is different or does it overlap with Scrum and no other way of other certifications? Correct? That was your second question, I believe.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay, so those are typically certifications, right? It proves the knowledge of a person. For example, if somebody is a Scrum Master, it kind of proves the knowledge of the person in implementing a project in a particular approach, right? So that is how it is. Whereas a PMBOK is PMBOK is a body of knowledge, right? It is a ready reference which lays down the standard principles or process for an efficient project management. Going to the PMBOK guide itself doesn't qualify one for a any certification, right? But then yes, one needs to kind of show himself as a uh, globally accredited project manager. The next step is probably to take up a PMP certification, isn't it? Which is more aligned with the new exam content outline, which the PMI rolled out in January 2021, right? So that would be a different certification altogether. But then reading the PMBOK itself is just like improvisation of one's knowledge, right? Does that address, Vinay?
Yes. You address it out. Thanks.
Sure.
Preeta,
Aman.
there is a question on the chat window. In domains,
Okay.
please explain delivery.
1 moment, I'm just going there.
It's from Sandeep.
It's right at the bottom.
No, it's around 9:13 p.m. In domains, can you please explain delivery? 9:30. I'll post it again.
Yeah, post that. Probably I don't know why I'm not able to. 913, is it?
Yeah, I'm posting it.
Okay.
Yeah, done.
Okay. In domain, please explain delivery. Okay, you mean to say this particular delivery here? Okay, so this actually has got all the knowledge of how to deliver a project. Okay, so that is all it is. It is like if you kind of go through the uh, body of knowledge, right, in terms of what all processes have to be done, it typically comprises knowledge in terms of all the executing processes. Correct, executing processes. If one has gone through the PMBOK 6 or the previous versions, there are these executing processes. So delivery typically comprises knowledge of how to execute, typically in terms of how to create a schedule, right? Knowledge around all the executing processes. So that is basically delivery, right? Planning is basically planning process. Then project work and delivery, mostly executing process. Then measurement, which is closely following that, which comprises all the knowledge in terms of monitoring and controlling processes, if one is familiar with PMBOK 6, right? That's how these actually flow into each other, right? Does that address? Okay. So I think some more questions have come on the chat window also.
Hi, Prita. This is Ashwin here.
Yeah, Ashwin.
Yeah, I have some typical question. This is just to add on a recent one wherein it was referring to other Scrum certifications available in market. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
can we, is there anything as a document which says that what are the advantages of PMI's agile certifications or others, or what is the best available in comparison to others, because that helps in
Okay, so I
till
don't.
we enter into
Okay.
because
Rita,
if
I
we
have a
want to
similar
assess
question.
something,
What he's saying.
either we have to go through in detail of all the material and then understand, and if there is something as a single sheet wherein we assess some different areas which are giving a better cutting edge over others, so that would be helpful for any beginner or any intermediate aspirants.
Okay. So I'm not sure if there's a comparison which exists between the advantages of going for each and every certification. But yeah, if you log into PMI's website, there is an enlistment of certification, okay, which actually, if you kind of click, for example, a project management professional or an ACP or a DASSM. So once somebody clicks that, it definitely gives what you are signing up for. So what would be kind of what can be expected and what are the qualifiers. So if you are kind of a project manager with so many years of experience and this is what you're looking to as your aspiration. So if one could read that, probably one has to kind of make up their mind. But I'm not sure if there's a document which exists published by PMI comparing and contrasting as to what is suitable for an individual.
Okay.
But it's very industry specific. So somebody is probably, or the kind of projects one is doing, right? For example, somebody who's an IT professional, for instance, who probably has already got a PMP certification, and then they want to kind of and they are working typically on a lot of agile projects, right? And they want to kind of demonstrate their knowledge of working on agile projects. So then if they research on the website, they could probably come to a conclusion like ACP is a very suitable kind of a certification for them, right? So they could probably then aspire for getting that done.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
have a similar question. Hi, Prita. Aman here. And what
Yeah.
just you answered. I'm already PMP certified.
Mm-hmm.
Now the thing is that regarding PMI ACP, it's totally agile. And coming
Yeah.
back to PMP, it's more or less like a 70-30 ratio what the exam has shown us. Now,
Mm-hmm.
should I go for PMI ACP, or should I be, be with my PMP and that's sufficient? If I want to, work on the agile projects and do that, what to do? I'm just in a dilemma on this front. Can just
Okay, so a lot of people have the dilemma. Which version, I mean, you passed out of the PMP?
this one last year I've passed.
PMBOK 6 or 7? 7.
Six. But
6.
in seven, 6 and 7 more or less. But 7 was active this year itself. So you
New
can say six.
exam content outline is what you passed with, isn't it?
Yeah,
Then,
yeah,
if it's
yeah.
last year. Okay, so that covers a lot of agile. But having said that, it's a demand. My response would be it's a demand of your organization and your own personal this thing, right? Personal aspiration. But definitely, I have not gone through the ACP exam myself because it's not very relevant to my industry. But then I have gone through the agile practice guide each and every line. And my two other fellow trainers, one of them is from the IT industry, and then and for him, I'm definitely, as I hear from him, ACP was very, very relevant for him. It was an eye opener for him because in detail, though he was also PMP, it was kind of very helpful in terms of enhancing his knowledge for doing agile projects. So that way, despite being a PMP already, I think the ACP really added a lot to his knowledge, in terms of doing the projects on agile environment. That's how I would put it.
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah, that was I was even thinking at even taking a add-on, so it doesn't harm
Yeah,
it
yeah.
because I
A lot of
already have
people
PMP
have.
knowledge.
A lot of people who are already PMPs, and if they see like ACP being very relevant for them, and they do a lot of agile projects, they do kind of undertake this ACP coaching and take the exam.
Yeah.
Sure,
Hi,
sure.
this is
Thank
Viren here. Preeta, I'd like to add over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think, no, sorry, I didn't get the name who was talking,
Aman.
asking the question.
Aman.
Aman here.
Yeah. Hi,
Yeah.
Aman. Hi. No,
Hi.
so I think Preeta aptly said that, see, ACP is quite detailed one when you talk about agile. So I personally feel if you're working on agile projects, definitely ACP will do a good value addition.
Correct.
So you can go through it, and if you clear that, not just taking the course, but if you clear the exam, then I think it's a really a different level. I mean, now it shows that you understand the nuances of the agile project.
Right. It's
So
Yeah,
very valuable.
definitely.
Yeah. It's very valuable for somebody who operates in that
Yeah,
environment. Yeah.
I'm thinking to give the paper.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think there's one more question from Debashish who has posted. Are the future PMP exams aligned towards 7th edition? Okay, that's a question which a lot of our candidates who come for the training, PMP exam training also asks. So I would like to clarify that. That's a very interesting question. So the new exam content outline was rolled out slightly before 6 or 7 months before this 7th edition. So the new eco was rolled out in Jan 2021, and the 7th edition came in around late July, early August, if I don't remember the exact date, but something around that time. So there was a lag of 6 months. So the new exam content outline has been clearly published along three domains, which is people, process, and business environment by the PMI. The process domain, which holds 50% weightage, are very similar. Some of you who might have already cleared the exam as per the 6th edition, or who have already learned about the 6th edition. The 50% process, there is nothing new. It is very, very similar to the previous editions of PMBOK. The people and the business environment domain are quite new. I wouldn't say it's fully new, but then definitely the people domain and the business environment looks at the evolving landscape of project management, which we just learned some time back, right? But yes, the exam content outline is what kind of directs the exam content, not the PMBOK 7th edition. The exam content outline, anybody who undertakes the exam, the PMI would give a manual, a student manual. So the exam content outline, which is covered into that, is more relevant for the exam preparation itself. But having said that, that doesn't negate the value of going through the PMBOK 6 or the 7th edition, because all of this knowledge are comprised in the process domain, people, and business environment. So definitely, it's a good read. Definitely, it's a suggested learning to kind of go through all this. But then to address this answer, the exam content outline of PMI is what kind of drives the exam questions, which is of course aligned to these editions. There's no doubt about that. Debashish. Yeah, I think that one I explained. Delivery, please. Do agile teams even require a PM? It is very organization specific, but yes, as per PMBOK, agile teams are supposed to be high performing. And then there is somebody called as a servant leader, who is typically the agile coach or a scrum master, whatever you may call it as per your organization's nomenclature, who typically the role is slightly different, right? So I think Samir asked this question, right? So Samir, the role is slightly different. Traditionally, in a waterfall project, the PM is supposed to kind of manage each and every process or activities, and then he's supposed to kind of take accountability or ownership for each and every deliverable which his team kind of comes up as an output. But definitely on an agile team, that is not the expectation, because they're all supposed to come with broad skills or T-shaped skills or high performing teams. And then the role of the agile coach is more or less to kind of remove the impediments or bottlenecks, right? And just to kind of be the nodal point of connection with the stakeholder community to make sure the product backlog is kind of translated well into outcomes, right? So that is primarily the role. The role is more lean or more leadership rather than management, right? Somebody asked the question between management and leadership. An agile coach has got a more leadership role to play rather than managing or micromanaging the team's outputs. So that's how I would like to put it, Samir. I think somebody has rightly said 7th, focus on outcomes rather than deliverables. Okay, I think that more or less covers the question. Unless anybody has anything more, please feel free. Okay. I think Rupali looks like
Yeah.
yeah, the team
Yes.
is done. Yeah, with the questions also.
Yes, and thank you, Preeta. And it was you
My pleasure.
really demystified no PMBOK 7. That's what I can say. So here is our token of appreciation from PMI Mumbai chapter,
Okay.
PITSTOP team. 1 minute, I'll say, yeah. And thank you for taking out time for us
Thank you so much.
and demystifying PMBOK 7.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll also share this
Code.
code,
Yeah.
yes,
Video
PDU
code for all.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
This is
So two announcement or suggestion. One is that what kind of sessions you would like to see in the future. Please share maybe over here or maybe later on personally to any of us, so that we can align these webinars as per that. So I have seen some inputs written over here about risk management and leadership in project management, etc. So fine, we'll consider that. So if you have any other topics, let us know. So that is one thing. And second is that there is a PMI South Asia conference which is happening in the December in Mumbai. This is happening after 5 years, and it is going to be at the Nehru Center, Worli. So I think it will be a good opportunity to listen to eminent speakers as well as to network with some decision makers and the leaders. So my request is that you can join the this conference, and then really you will gain some knowledge. Okay. Thank you, and thank you, Preeta. It was really a wonderful session. Thanks for taking the session at very short notice. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.